Morning, people. We're back. Lovely sunny morning here in November. What is it? November 10, 2023. This video is going to be a little carryover or pickup on the previous video with respect to reporting the disposition of your securities. And before I get to that, I just had a little thing here. I met with a fella a week ago, got to reclaim his securities package and did the power of attorney thing and stuff. And anyway, he fired off a communication to the Canada Revenue Agency, and he got a reply back from them just last week or a week ago. No, 2 weeks ago. I met him last week. In any case, so the Canada Revenue Agency, that's the national taxing authority here in Canada, and what they're asking him to provide the person's social insurance number. They didn't ask for his social insurance number. They asked him to provide the person's social insurance number. Now, that could seem like a very small thing, but it's actually a very big thing because you see, he's got that distinction going. There's me and there's that. There's two beings, same name, right? We talked about all of this stuff. So I just wanted to share that, and he did that all of his own, come up with his own little plan there. Like I say, utilize the power of attorney, I believe, the security agreement, so on and so forth, to reclaim the security stuff. But he took a slightly different approach for his purposes based on his understanding, and that's why he just wanted to confirm that there's no trickery or anything in the letter there. So that's perfect. They're asking you to provide the person's social insurance number. So there's this and there's that. Two beings, same name. Same sounding name. Names are not the same. With respect to, let's get into it here. Oh, there's a woman out there too, by the way. I think she goes by the name Dee or Doris. She's selling some of the documents I've drafted up there, just so you're aware. Nothing I can do about that. I kind of expect that kind of thing for people to do that, but she's a student, so she's just copying documentation, and just a caution there to people if you're in contact with her. It is what it is. So yeah, with respect to reporting the disposition of securities, you all ought to know here by now that we are the bank, the people are the bank. We're the only source of value out there. Without us, nothing happens. It's not the gold, it's not the silver. In that sense, excuse me, it's our labor. In that sense, we are the gold. We are the bank. We are the benefactor. Everyone's his own little bank. Everyone's his own little benefactor with respect to their person you have and hold. Now, there's two ways to go with respect to this reporting the disposition of securities. It's early in the morning here. I'm going to pause and get some coffee going here. Thanks. Just a sec. So we have to understand it's ours. The whole system is based on, it's the securities, it is underwriting, it is funding, is the underlying funding of the entire financial system. It's got our signatures on it. So it's us that's putting that value in there. It's not your charter banks, your national banks, your federal banks, blah, 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 blah. No, we are the banks. We are the benefactor. We're the ones providing the financial services for their fictional person that you have in hold, let's say. That's why I wanted to share with my meeting with my friend there, because it's like I say, it might seem like a little teeny thing there that they're asking him to provide the person's social insurance number, but it's quite large when you think about it. It's huge. It's very huge. So when I say there's two ways to go here with respect to when you're reporting the disposition of the securities, which is your promises to pay. You have to go through the UCC, best to go through the UCC Article 8 and securities transfer legislation, that sort of thing. So because you want to use the language, and the language you're talking to securities, in this case, in the form of a promise to pay. So, so there's two ways to go about how you're going to move forward on this when you're reporting the disposition of the securities. Now, you can do it on the basis that, yes, it's my security, it's my signature on there, it's my credit, therefore I have claim to the debt, which is the output of your credit. That's an option, or you can let them have it. Let's think about that. And you'll find that the path of least resistance here is, if you're going to be the bank, you don't also want to be the owner on the other end, right? Like everybody has claimed claimed ownership of property. So on one end, we're the bank, the benefactor. And on the other end, we're appearing as the person and claiming ownership when we claim ownership. So it's kind of like we're funding ourselves, and that's kind of like saying, well, God did this, he funded for himself, he didn't do it for all of life. And what God does is that he does for life. Everything. It's total unconditional, greatest act of unconditional love ever. None of this mine. I did this, so I get the rewards of it. It's my security, I get the fruits of it. It's my security, I get the money, my money, mine, all mine. And we wonder why the planet's in the state it's in. But there's another way to go about that, and that is to realize that, just a second here, if I'm kind of like the God, I'm not saying we are God. Don't get me wrong. It's just metaphorically speaking. But if you're the God on the account in the bank, the underwriter, the benefactor, the God on the account with respect to the John Paul Smith person you have and hold, and you can see that claiming ownership and without that understanding, I guess maybe, but claiming ownership of the property in the other end of that, it's in the name of the person. You can see you basically funded their person that you're using, but you claimed ownership, and that's just how you get all bound up in this financial nightmare, legal nightmare. So we like to take what I'm here to talk about is the perspective, and I've touched on it in previous videos for sure, is that, okay, yeah, our securities as underwriting is providing the credit for the fund to underwrite the fund, their John Paul Smith that I have and hold. Just like the bank right now, those banks out there, they're providing the financing for the John Paul Smith you have and hold. The problem is you think that's you. But that being unknown to you, you actually provided the funding to the bank to allow the bank to do that. Whole little situational thing there. So bottom line is this. You can report the disposition of the securities, as I've said, to the proper taxing authority. Let them go after those securities. That's their job. There's an obligation to report these things. And you can want, with the attitude that you wanted them to go and collect that for you, or that they're going to collect that to settle up the debts associated with, attached to that fictional being person y'all have and hold, that John Paul Smith on your birth certificate, that legal entity, that little legal person, that son of the country, y'all have one, to settle the debt, its debts. So your credit is out from that. When you're reporting the disposition of this, I'm trying to keep this simple, reporting the disposition of the securities, when they go get those, there's proceeds, there's cash value, there's money there. Cash value may not be an exact term, that's more like an insurance term, but there is a cash money value there. So rather than taking it or claiming it for me, you can release that or let that go. Say, okay, so you guys go collect on those securities. I'm reporting the disposition of these securities. Go get them, go get the proceeds, and then use all of that to settle up the debts so on associated or attached to the person that you have and hold. Like my friend, they wanted his person's social insurance number, not his person's, the person's social insurance number. Just a sec here. Take a sip of some coffee. Gasoline. Maybe more like nitroglycerin. You find that this methodology is certainly the path of least resistance, and if you think about it in terms of creation itself, it's a more sensible way to go when you really think about it. So our securities provides the financing or the funding for their person you have and hold. So reporting the disposition of the securities is to say, I'll just read from my notes here, keep it simpler. The easy path here is to be the benefactor, to report the disposition of the securities, instruct the IRS, the CA, Canada Revenue Agency, the ATO, whatever the national taxing authority is, wherever you're at, to go after those securities, and they can keep the proceeds, the cash value, so they can settle up the debts attached to the fictional son of the country, that other fictional being, their person you hold. It's not yours. You have it. You hold it. Just it's not your birth certificate. Yeah, I have a birth certificate. It's not mine. It's not my driver's license. I have it. It belongs to the Ministry of Transportation, right? It's not my passport. It belongs to Canada, US, whatever. We have these things. We hold these things, but they're not ours. They're always going to ask you for your this, your that. That's if you buy into that, you're entrapping yourself as an owner. So yeah, it's to set up the debts attached to the fictional son of the country, blah, 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 blah. How so, you may ask? The process reveals this, what I'm talking about here, the disposition of securities and letting them have the dough. The process reveals it was your financial asset, your security, your credit that funded the alleged loan, the loan. They are your securities. You sign them. It is your cash value. You are the benefactor. You are the bank in that sense. In short, and we held a recent Zoom meeting on this, You can have the tax man go and collect on the securities you're reporting the disposition of to settle the debts for and on behalf of the owner. Remember, we don't own anything. We don't want to own anything. Owner pays. This is what got us in trouble in the first place, saying that, yep, my house, my car, my TV, my furniture. Okay, well, pay your bills. Then you got to have if you want to have the ownership, you got to take the debts to go with it, right? The obligations to go with it. So in short, and we held a recent Zoom meeting on this, you can have the tax man go collect on the securities you report the disposition of for purpose so they can to be applied to settle debts for and on behalf of the owner. In Canada and the other Commonwealth countries, the owner would be King Charles III in right of Canada or whatever, whatever the owner is in the country you're at. I think in the United States, it would be the USA that is the owner. So you see now it's like you're providing your credit to help them out. But in helping them out, you're helping yourself out because you hold their person. So through them, you're covering your person that's not you, that you hold. This is true. It's like being a God, like being a true lender here. Not for thyself. It's the problem. My estimation, and many others tend to agree with that. So at the end of the day, it's like you gift your credit to pay the owner's debts attached to the fictional son of the country, that fictional being you all have and hold one of. Said another way, you provide your credit to fund their person you have and hold, John Paul Smith. Excuse me. So it's just a little minor tweaking thinking in perspective, and certainly a bigger one in consciousness maybe, but like I say, so when you're reporting the disposition, you're saying, yeah, you guys go after that stuff and you can have the proceeds for these purposes to settle the obligations, the debts attached to their John Paul Smith, their little person that you have and hold that account. Whatever the name is on the, in your world, John Paul Smith, Mary Smith, whatever. And that's truly the path of least resistance. And I think if you think about it, that's how it was meant to be, like it is in creation. When God created heaven and the earth and created all the animals and blah 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 blah. Then He created man and gave man dominion over it. But God didn't say at the end of the day, God's not acting like we are saying He's doing all of this and then mine, mine, mine. Doesn't even show up, to take anything or whatever, but impose any burdens on us. Somewhere along the way, like I say, and it's this from the I Am teachings. I agree with this. Selfishness is the root of all evil. It's the cause of all crime and death and destruction in the world. And again, think on that deeply. What selfishness is about? Selfishness. You see it everywhere in all of us. Me as well. So a little tweak in the brain here. We say, okay, so I'm gonna. My securities was meant to provide the funding for the king's son, the owner's son, that fictional being. But it went sideways when I claimed ownership, which meant I was identifying myself as that son of the king, that fictional being. So we stopped that nonsense, which is part of your directing them to go and collect on those securities, presumed abandoned, and so on and so forth. That's why reporting the disposition. It's lawful process, it's legal, it's right in the law to do this, so do it. But let them have the proceeds for the purposes of settling the obligations attached to their person you have and hold. Can it be any simpler than that? Can I make it any simpler? Maybe. Now, if you think on that deeply, go sit on that rock and think on that deeply, I think you'll see that this is the path of least resistance. Sorry, I had a headphone catastrophe here. Couldn't figure out which was the mute button. Unmute. Too many buttons. Where was I? So yeah, I think you'll find this is the path of least resistance. Excuse me. Freeing up your credit to fund their person you use. Rather than mine, it's mine. I want you to go get this for me. I don't believe it's set up to be done that way. Yes, you have the right to do that. It is the fruits of your labor, no doubt about it. But I think you'll find that, well, it is a more complicated path. For sure. So you're releasing, so they're going to go collect on these proceeds, so on and so forth. That's what you're going to direct them to do and apply that to settle up the debts attached to their fictional being, person, son of the country you have and hold. Now think about that. So in that sense, you'd get the benefit, right? Indirectly, because you're funding it. But on paper, you're not the owner. So on paper, there's no selfish activity here. And that's why I shared with my friend, the fella I spoke with there a week ago. The Canada Revenue Agency asked him to provide the person's social insurance number. So there's him and there's the person. There's him that's going to fund this with his securities. Get it? On the person he has and holds. That's not him. Clearly, they were asking him to provide this social insurance number for their person, the person, which obviously is their person. He and the person are not one and the same. I'm just rambling on here, getting a little bit repetitive. I don't want to do that. Try to keep it short. So, like I say, we're underwriting, we're funding the whole system. It's coming up from us. It's coming up into the system. Promissory notes, your signatures. These are our securities. This is how it's all funded out there. That's the source of the credit. It's in the legislation. We've gone through all of this in the code. Pardon me, in the codes. And you're either the owner on the end of that, in which case you have to be their person, that person. That's the only way you can be the owner when you're claiming ownership, because men don't exist there, right? God's here, but we can't grab him. We can't see him. We can't say God's getting anything. So you can do it that way, or you can say, you know what, you guys go collect on that. I'm reporting the disposition. You guys go get that stuff and use that to settle up the obligations attached over here. Actually, I got something I want to read from a friend of mine. I'll end it, the meeting here, pardon me, the call here. I'm here to settle for and on behalf of the king, the owner. It's the attitude. When he took that attitude, everything went his way. You got to have some basic understanding here, and you just go in there frothing off at the mouth and because of stuff you heard here, but that's what I'm talking about. You take yourself out of the equation as it's all about me. And that's what I'm talking about. You're going to release your credit, the debt. The debt is the output of your credit. You're going to release that when you go get the proceeds. That's where they're going to get that debt to release that to them to settle up the debts attached to the person you have and hold. In other words, you're here to settle up the king, to help settle up the king for and on behalf of the king, to settle up his obligations, because you're the bank, you're the benefactor. He can't do it. Humpty Dumpty, no, the king's horses couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, but you can. You have the power. We are the power. We're the bank. And in that sense, our labor is the gold, not physical, but you know what I'm saying here, I hope. So on that note, I think I'm done here, and just going to pause it, think about it. If I don't come back, I'm done. God bless. Love you. Later, God never fails. Not possible. Keep smiling. Don't go down in the dumps, all that negativity crap thrown on out there. Shut the TV off. Be happy. Sorry, I'm back. I tend to do this quite a bit. Anyhow, so maybe if you look at it like so, God provides the life. God is the life into the system, into reality. In the financial and the legal system, our credit is the life. And that's what I mean by, in that sense, it's kind of like we're God. We're not God, don't get me wrong, but it's the credit. Our credit is the lifeblood to that system, is the life for that system. Without us, there is no credit. You get it? So in that sense, it's like we're God. The only question is, are we in it for ourselves or for the creation? That's what I'm talking about here, is when letting them go take the proceeds to settle up the obligations, so on and so forth, attached to the person you have and hold that you use. It's giving life to that creation out there. But because it's covering this thing you have and hold and use, you see, so it frees you up in the process just by removing the selfishness, essentially, and putting things, like I said, all the king's men and all the king's horses could not put Humpty Dumpty back together again, but you can. I'm done. If you're interested, we have the Reclaiming Securities back. Our blog is www.restorethekingdomofgod.blogspot.com. There's more information there. There's 3 buttons in the middle of the screen that say click here. 3 big buttons. That's where you'll find some additional information aside from the information on the main page. There's also a contact us button there if you want to make contact. God bless. Love you. Keep smiling. And again, light of God never fails. It's not possible to extinguish the light. Don't buy into that nonsense. Love you. God bless. Till next time. Ciao. Okay, I'm back. Should have added in there. If you're letting them have the proceeds, so on and so forth, what you're actually doing is you're letting the trustee, the whole situation. Remember, the whole thing is to get a trusteeship off of our backs and where it should be. So you're letting them have the proceeds. You're letting the trustee have the proceeds so the trustee can do her job. Love you. God bless. I'm done, done. I hope I'm done, done. I believe I'm done, done. I may not be done, done, but I believe I'm done, 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 done. Love you.